Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, fast food workers are getting back at Karen customers and managers, guys. And OP tells the story about the time a Karen was promoted to manager and she goes on a power trip. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's satisfying stories. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened several years ago when I was working at Taco Bell, and it involves a pretty gross customer request. Now, for those who don't know, Taco Bell asks for your name when taking an order, so they can yell it out when your food's ready. On this particular day, one customer comes in, a dude in his 40s wearing camo, and he decides to abuse the rule. When asked by our cashier what his name was, he tells the cashier, Daddy. Now, this isn't good in any situation, but the cashier at the time was a very young girl. I don't think she was 18, and definitely not his actual daughter. So naturally, she goes to find the shift lead, who we'll call Kevin, not his real name. Now, Kevin is a lot of things, and one of those things is gay. I'm trying to find the right words to say this without offending anybody, so I'll just say that Kevin really wasn't macho. We also live in the Midwest, and I can guarantee that he's been called more than one slur, even before actually showing romantic affection towards another guy. I wasn't there for that part, but I've been told that his reaction to what the creep was trying to pull was like handing a needle to a kid in a balloon store. When the guy's food's ready, Kevin goes up to the counter and he belts out, Daddy, in exactly the tone you're imagining. Some people go silent, others start whispering, and the entire back is trying not to laugh. Daddy doesn't say a word. The guy marches up, grabs his food, and leaves. Frickin' instant karma right there, guys, and I'm sure the guy was traumatized and hopefully will never do that again. With that said though, and I'm sure this isn't the case in this situation, but what if the guy's name was actually Daddy? Because this person comments, this is good. But I did have a student in my class one year actually named Daddy. It was so awkward. So years back, I was working at this Thai fast food place. Now, when I say fast food, I just say this because we're fast at getting you your food. Everything was fresh, and it was cooked right before your eyes at amazing prices, and when I say fresh, I really mean it. I've never seen any veggies getting brown or wilted. It was always freshly cut every 2 hours. We also did the noodles ourselves. As for the price range, it was really good. You can imagine around lunchtime, the place was packed. It was going as well as it usually does until in comes Karen. The woman orders 3 dishes. I told her it'll be roughly a 30-minute wait since we're packed. And hearing that, it pissed her off already. She complains right away saying, I got places to be. You said 30 minutes, so I'd better get my food in 30 minutes. Now, I was shocked at her outright hostility, but I say, we'll call you when your order's ready. About 20 minutes later, she comes back to the counter and she starts shouting, the guy who took my order said my food would be ready in 30 minutes, and I've been waiting here for almost an hour. And yes, the woman was screaming so loud, trying to cause a scene. So I put my nicest retail grin on and said, ma'am, you ordered 20 minutes ago. I know that because I was the one who took your order. At this, Karen says, are you arguing with me? Blah, 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 blah. The customer's always right. I want to speak to your manager. Because, of course, she wants the manager. But what she doesn't know is that I'm the manager. So I say to her, you want to speak to the manager, I'm the manager on duty. Again, with my best retail smile. Karen, clearly not recognizing that I took her order, and I said that to her, say, well, I ordered my food nearly an hour ago, and your employee was rude to me. I tell her, oh, I'm so sorry, but as you can see, we're very busy here due to lunch rush. I can assure you that we're working on your order as fast as we can. This is when she says, well, I don't have time to wait that long. I have places to be and I want my meals comped. If your employees can't make food in a timely manner, then you should fire them. I have places to be. At that moment, I had enough. I tell her, lady, you placed your order with me like 20 minutes ago, not an hour. Plus, you shouted at me, you're rude, you lied to my face about what happened, and you're making ridiculous demands. You're not getting compensated. Now, being the manager, I knew the owner very well, and I knew he would have my back for this, so I knew I could do this. But of course, Karen got extra angry. She shouts at me saying, "Well, I want my money back, and I will never eat here again. The service is disgusting." It's at this point, the old woman standing there waiting chimes in. The old lady says, "Hey, you ordered your food right before me, so I know for a fact that you're waiting maybe 25 minutes, if that. The place is packed, and we're all waiting, and we all have places to be. And they told you it would be 30 minutes, so stop bitching. We are all hungry, and we all want our food, and we all have places to be. And none of us is being rude. None of us lies and tried to make a scene over nothing. We're all waiting patiently. So what makes you think they want you to come back and be an insufferable bitch again?" And oh my goodness, you could see that Karen wanted to slap this woman. While the old woman ripped Karen a new one, the most perfect timing happened. Karen's order number gets called. Cue the malicious compliance. Karen goes to grab the bag of food, but since she wanted her money back, I hold out my hand, and I say, no, you wanted a refund, so you're getting one. I then opened the register and gave her money back. Karen just gave me the dirtiest look ever, and she simply stormed out, saying that because of us, her kids will go hungry. After she was out, I grinned at the old lady and said, "You have no idea how often I've wanted to tell a customer like her that. Would you like to take her food? You really deserve it." The old woman laughed and said no, there was no way she could finish all that food and to give it to someone else. She was just glad to be of help. From then on, we had a new regular. The old lady came back all the time. She was there on a weekly basis. And Karen actually held her promise to never return. It was worth it. 10 out of 10 would do again. Okay, first of all, I just want to say that Karen not even recognizing OP after they took her order is some next level self-absorption. But yeah, the old woman piping up and giving Karen a piece of her mind was much needed, guys. Like, it's so wild that even in a packed restaurant where everyone's waiting for food, some people still have the audacity to be like, me. I have places to be, my kids are hungry, blah, 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 no one else matters. I also love the way OP handled it. That was brilliant though. If you want a refund, nah, you're not getting your food. Go somewhere else. So my previous job was a cook at the local KFC, which was one of the faster ones in the area. I had been there for 3.5 years, and I didn't really have too many problems with management, and I was actually friends with some of them. But then, one of the senior staff gets promoted to a shift lead, and that's when this job got really bad. To put it into perspective, because I'd been at the job for a couple of years doing the same thing daily, I knew my stuff. I knew how much chicken we would need on a given night, and I could pretty much do my chicken runs by myself. And all of the other managers let me do it because they were often too busy to watch and manage chicken. Well, this newly promoted manager goes on a power trip. She didn't like that I was bypassing her in the so-called chain of command, and she starts getting annoyed. And sure, sometimes we had a bit of wastage, but everyone else agreed it was better to have a couple of pieces left over than to make a customer wait 30 minutes continuously. So this manager loses it at me, and our conversation goes like this. Karen says, "Did I tell you to cook all of this? You are not allowed to cook what you want. You have to wait till I tell you what to cook. And you will cook exactly the amount I tell you to. Got it?" I ask her, "So even when it's super busy, you want me to interrupt you to get you to tell me what I know needs cooking?" Karen says, "Yes, I don't care how busy. I will tell you what to cook and you will wait for me to tell you. Got it? I'm your boss." Now, this happened on a Tuesday night, the busiest night at the KFC where I live, due to a promotion on chicken. So I did exactly what she said. I cooked nothing unless she told me to. And in a matter of 30 to 45 minutes, we were out of chicken, with the drive-thru full and many customers waiting on chicken. This is when Karen manager walks out back, and me and the other cook are laughing, cleaning things and sweeping the floor. No chicken was down, and the fryers were on cool, so it would take a bit to heat up, and nothing was set up. She then proceeds to yell at us, asking why there was no chicken cooking, and she was saying that customers were waiting and they were completely out. And this is when I turn to her and say, "Well, you told me today that I don't cook anything without your permission, and you haven't told us to cook any chicken for the past hour. You're the boss, remember? And hearing that, her face went pale as she realizes she messed up. The amount of complaints and pissed off customers screaming at her demanding compensation was insane. We got a lot of flack from customers that night, and I actually saw her crying in her office. But after that, she started letting us cook using our judgment from then on. Super glad to be out of that crap hole. Guys, I always love the stories where new Karen bosses go on power trips and they're taught lessons, and what a satisfying tale this one was, right? Like, yeah, it does suck that the customers got mad and everybody took out their frustrations on the Karen boss, and she ended up bawling her eyes out in the back office. But hey, hopefully she learned from that, and you know what? Everybody needs to learn because all bosses start somewhere. So this happened in 2018, when I was working at a KFC outlet in the UK. Now, anyone who's worked fast food knows that there's times when the rush hour gets really hectic, especially if your franchise is on a busy street. I worked at this place on the weekends because it was the busiest time for the store, and it was the only time I could take out from university studies. At our busiest, we dealt with about 1,000 customers in a 12-hour workday, with about half of them being in these rush hour slots. I was part of the front of house staff, which meant that my job was to take orders, deal with and listen to customer questions and complaints, pack the orders, and hand them out as well. At any given time, I was doing 1, 2, or all of these jobs together. And since we would get so busy, we always aimed to have 2 people on registers, 2 people packing, and 1 person specifically for handing out the orders. Now, the handing out of orders job was the easiest part, and involved just standing there, which is why most of our staff used to work that station when they were tired, myself included. So fast forward 4 months into the job, and one of our old staff members, who we'll call Lisa, comes back to join the team again. Lisa had been working there before I joined, so she knew everyone beforehand. She was also a good-looking girl, and this will be important later. Now, before I proceed, I just want to say that none of my coworkers had any issues with me, and my boss loved my work. I'm a friendly person, so I was immediately settled in. My coworkers even playfully nicknamed me Skinny, and they joked around with me all the time. However, Lisa did not like that because she could see that I was the center of attention due to my hyper energy. One fine Saturday, I go into work, and I've been made responsible to yell out order numbers and give the customers their food, and dealing with anything that might be wrong or missing, which is fair enough. I had a really busy Friday, and I was hoping for something easy to do. So I spend the first 6 hours of my shift doing this job, and after the staff for the first half of the day left, I decide to help the remaining staff out until our coworkers for the second half of the day came in. In comes Lisa for the second half of the day, and she's been made responsible for packing the orders, which is probably the most taxing job. This part of the workflow is so taxing that it always has at least 2 people handling that station. We were short-staffed that day, so Lisa was tasked to do this job alone, which was probably not the best decision by my manager. However, since she had worked here before, he trusted her to get the job done. We also had rotation for our posts, and it was her turn to handle that section that day. As if by some stroke of luck, rush hour starts right when she came in, so she didn't have time to prepare herself. And what's even funnier is that she came in with a bad mood, so she definitely didn't want to work that day. Also, one important detail here is that we have a large screen right above the packing station that the customers can see, which displays the orders with the details of their order. The screen also had a timer on each order, which under no circumstances would be allowed to go over 7 minutes. If that happens, the timer turns red, alerting us to work faster. Usually, this screen's not supposed to go beyond 7 orders at a time, but it has enough functionality to display up to 15 orders. Now, Lisa was trying her best, but as rush hour increased, the amount of orders waiting went up exponentially, and the customers start to line up. The screen went beyond 15 orders waiting, with red plastered all over it. And at this point, it was obvious that Lisa couldn't handle the packing section alone. This is when one of my coworkers nudges me to go help her out, since I was basically doing the easiest job just standing around. I decided that this was for the best, so I walk up and start packing orders right next to her. As I was doing so, she stopped the packing and she looked at me dead in the eyes, and with the most threatening look, she said, "Go do your own job." I tried to be nice as usual and explained to her kindly how crowded it was getting, but it was obvious that she didn't want to listen, and not wanting business to be affected, I decided to go alert my manager. But just as I was about to go ask him for advice, she says in the most condescending tone, "I don't know why you're trying so hard to work next to me, but it's honestly so creepy, you should stop. I'm not interested in you." Now, I will admit, I'm an average-looking guy, definitely not in her league, but she was under some sort of misconception that I somehow had feelings for her. She was probably used to guys running after her, and she placed me in the same row, without even getting to know me, which I found incredibly disrespectful. I also had a girlfriend at the time, so I was not interested in her at all. So with that, I casually walked back to my station and I grinned, knowing what was about to unfold. In the next 30 minutes, the screen was now full with 40 orders waiting. In fact, there were so many orders waiting that you couldn't even see half of them on the screen because they were so far down the list. At this point, customers were standing around, disgruntled and hungry, looking at Lisa as she was panicking. Lisa was running around, trying to do everything by herself. My coworkers had seen how she treated me, so no one approached her to help out. Lisa was all over the place with orders. She was chucking the bags in the air towards me, dropping fries on the floor, missing items, and customers were complaining so bad at this shoddy service. I mean, even by fast food standards, this was bad. And since I was the one handing out the orders, I was hearing all of the complaints and trying to sedate the customers as much as possible with the biggest smile on my face. It was pretty bad, and the only time I ever had fun listening to people complain. And what made it better was the customers knew I wasn't to blame, so we all just silently judged Lisa together as we watched her run around in a frenzy. I knew Lisa regretted telling me to just do my own job, and at this point, she was halting the entire business by herself. We would hear things like, "Lisa just dropped some fries on the floor, we need a new batch. That burger that Lisa sent out, she put into the wrong customer's bag, and they've came back demanding a refund. A customer's complaining that their food's cold, they want a fresh burger and compensation." And the thing is, the back of the house staff were doing all of their work on time, so cold food and the like was not their problem. It was because Lisa was messing up. They had to follow and remake the food, which meant wasting food, and also they were in a bad mood because they had to work extra for no reason. And this is when my assistant manager, whom I was really good friends with, runs out to the front and asked me in a concerned voice, "What's going on? Why aren't you helping her out?" I just explained casually what Lisa told me after I tried really hard to help, and I said it loud enough so customers could hear, and you could tell by the look on my manager's face that this wasn't his first rodeo with Lisa. Dejected and quietly, he turns around and he starts helping Lisa pack without saying another word to me. What made it even sweeter was that after 5 minutes, another senior member of staff comes to the front and he chucked Lisa out of her station towards the back of the house staff because she was being such a hindrance. In about 10 minutes, all the orders were cleared and the dust had settled. I was then tasked with handling the packing because I was the fastest at doing that, while Lisa had to prep burgers in the back over the smoldering heat of a fryer, which probably melted all of her makeup off her pretty face. Imagining all the crap she was getting from the manager and the embarrassment she had just faced was probably the most satisfying feeling I've ever had. Not because I was happy that she was struggling, but because I got back at her for thinking I was below her just because she thought she was hot stuff. And the cherry on top was the fact that she asked for this all by herself. Justice was served, but the orders weren't. At one point, I even walked to the back to see how she was doing. I found her hunched over the fryer, and I couldn't tell if what was rolling down her face was sweat or tears. And this is when I tell her, "You know, I have a girlfriend, and I'm not interested in you at all. I just wanted to help." Needless to say, Lisa never got to work the packing section again, and she tried her best to get along with me after the fact. Holy moly. You know, I used to work fast food making sandwiches, guys, and honestly, reading about all the angry customers, all the orders that were behind, all the people complaining about Lisa, that it was her fault the food had to be remade, mega anxiety right there. Like, I can't even begin to imagine how helpless and suffocated she was feeling while under that pressure. Like, seriously, I don't wish a mob of angry, hungry customers on my worst enemy. It's that bad, guys. But yeah, that was a lesson that needed to be taught though, and I'm just glad to know that Lisa tried her best to get along with OP after that. When I was 15 years old, I started working for a particular clown who owns a fast food restaurant. When I first started working, the manager assumed I was 16 years old, and I was given a red polo shirt to wear during my shifts. There was also a hierarchy to the shirts at this restaurant. White was for anyone 15 and younger, a red shirt was for 16 and over, black shirts were for crew trainers, and the full button-down shirts were for managers. All of the shirts were made of a decent fabric, except for the white shirt, which was very thin and practically see-through. So about a month after I started working there, the manager calls me into her office and she asked me why I lied about my age. I told her I never once said to her that I was 15, so I never really lied about it. She then told me that I need to hand in my red shirt and exchange it for a white one, which I did. I wore the white one for about a week, and that's when I noticed that after the first wash, the fabric became even thinner and the shirt was practically see-through. Now, as a heavy-set individual, if I weren't wearing an undershirt, you would have seen all of my hairy, manly glory underneath this sorry excuse for a shirt. I asked, since I'd been wearing a red shirt for a month and the shirt colors don't really mean much, could I get my old red shirt back? I was told that it was company policy to follow the shirt rules, and I was denied my old red shirt. So cue the malicious compliance. There was a rule stating that I had to wear my see-through company-issued shirt for all of my shifts, but there was no rule stating what I had to wear underneath. With that said, my dad had recently returned from Mexico, and he had brought me one of the most touristy shirts from his trip. There were 4 panels on the shirt. The first panel had a worm and a shot that said 1 tequila. The second panel had the same worm, second shot, and the worm was much drunker. It said 2 tequila. The third panel was the same worm, third shot, very drunk, and it said 3 tequila. And as I'm sure you've deduced, the fourth is the worm passed out, and it says floor. I decided that this was the perfect undershirt for a 15-year-old register worker at the clown to wear, underneath his see-through shirt. I wore it for one shift before manager Karen comes up to me. She told me how she didn't appreciate the fact that I wore such a vulgar shirt underneath my work uniform. This is when I politely tell her that nobody would know what I was wearing underneath my work shirts if they weren't see-through. When I went to clock out that day, they had a brand new, unused red polo shirt waiting for me. I was told to wear that same red shirt from that point forward and to turn in my white shirts. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where Karen bosses are getting owned once again, guys. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.